Well, hello there, folks. You've caught Ashley and Azrael having a little bit of relaxing green scream. A green scream. Well, maybe we could get feisty. No, we're going to behave ourselves tonight. Green room chat. Well, nothing like that. Next time we'll actually use our brain before we open our mouth. So yes, we're all the way here from the great nexus in good old Blighty, where freedom of expression reigns true. Azrael, don't you need to press something? Oh yes, we need to do this. We'll try that again. Well, we're still getting the hang of taking the presentation off the stage and that intro to the stage, just the way Stream Yard works. There we go. Right, we've played the show trailer, folks, and we're going to start off to, well, hello there. I tell you what, chat's keen tonight. Good catch, Bianca. Gothic Noir, Yamakoshi. As sharp as a samurai? No, sharp as a katana, we say. And here we go. Hello, boys. Well, hello. We're going to get a chance to use our... Are they dyslexic today? That depends on X, really. Right, here we go. We're going to go for... Hello there, Bianca. Gothic. Can we do this while running a show? Multitasking. Stretch the male brain. Gothic Noir. Yamakoshi. I think we spell that right. There we go. Big smiling Azrael. I wonder what we're going to talk about tonight, Bianca Yamakoshi. I think we're going to have a little prelude. Oh, yes, we love it when we do a little prelude. Oh, yes, we love it when we do that. Right then, let's talk about Irish tragedy, shall we? Of course we're going to do that. Do you know what? Let it be said, or never let it be said, that Azrael does not have a sense of humour. He's even been known to smile up on occasion. Yes, why not? Why don't we? Yes. Everybody hear the tragedy of Azrael. Anyway, let's move swiftly on. Yes, I'm going to put in the chat. Yes, let's do that. And you've got to put a smiley with that. There we go. Ashley's wondering what he's let himself in for. Don't worry, folks. By the time we've finished with him, he'll need the Lloyd from The Simpsons and a big window. Yes, let's talk about Irish tragedy, shall we? Yeah, we're going to go, yeah, hello there, Bianchi, Gothic Noir Yamakoshi. And shall we talk about Irish tragedy? Well, I think we should. Let's do that. Why not? And hey, we've got a smile when we talk about Irish tragedy. Maybe a little glass of orange juice, just like the Irish do. A truth to learn from. Yes, truth. Multifaceted diamond it is. Yes, a truth to learn from. Yes. Speaking of truth, let us go to the prelude. All right then. Yes, we should be happy when there are ladies in the chat. They bring verve and charm and wit. And obviously behave yourself as well, Ashley. Anyway, let's just broaden our StreamYard interface so we can see what we're doing. Ah, here we go. We've got a bit of a prelude, Ashley and Bianca. Prelude. True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. Seneca. And let's go to Alex Hormozi on X. One of the latest darlings of business. 2 books on Amazon, both in hardback. You're looking at about £25 each. Much to learn we have from him. Alex Hormozi says, this was done, I think, the other day. If you have someone who loves you, a goal to work towards, and your health, you've already won. Yeah, we like that one. Right then, tonight, the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live features Azrael, host, talking to special guest Ashley's Argonauts. We're talking art, comics, movies, games, and toys. That's what the 5 Pillars of Storytelling is about, specializing in indie comics in that 1 to 1,000 inertial bracket. Yeah? And each needle of art, comics, movies, games, and toys has the eye of a needle, and we thread a golden thread through art, goes into comics, comics goes into movies. Movies are now into a bigger product called games. They eclipse them by gross revenue nowadays, by some margin, we hear. And games can also be made into toys. So you can connect with your 7-year-old or childlike self. And obviously the greatest playground of the imagination is inside your head. So perhaps toys is that kind of idea that sometimes we need to go back to being a child to learn to appreciate things. You know, maybe that's where the fans of the Phantom Menace kind of missed out. Instead of looking at the Phantom Menace through adult eyes, look at it through the people it was actually meant for, 7 to 12-year-olds, coming from the mouth of George Lucas himself. It's Wednesday, the 11th of June. Ashley's Argonauts, 7 p.m. GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, London, UK. But not too close to the Middle Kingdom of Nottingham. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Subscribe is just like a follow on X. It's free to do. Log in and just help the channel out, please. Perhaps give Ashley a little follow on X as well. A rising tide lifts all boats. Every follow counts. We call it the power of one. Moving swiftly on. Host introduction. Hello there. Welcome to the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live. Let's make a little bit of eye contact and bat our eyelashes into the green light. We've got to connect with our audience, of course. I'm your host, Azrael. Yes, where we took art, comics, movies, games, and toys. I'm your host, Azrael, and my secret identity is Carl Prometheus, storyteller, artist. You're going to show any of your artwork one day. Who knows? A promoter of indie creators a lot for the last 2.5 years. 50,000 posts on X, all of them positive and unpaid. Indie comics and the indie comic community, which we're doing our very best to Sisyphean style push that boulder. With 2,800 followers plus now, I think it's 2,824 followers now. We don't call them followers, we call them creative leaders. Yeah? And live by the sword, we certainly do. We try and walk the talk. Oh, yes. We've been doing a lot of walking the last week. How you been, Azrael? Never you mind. A most Rubik's-like Rubicon task to walk through the fire of the Rubicon to the other side. And sooner or later, it would yield to Azrael, he says cryptically. As we knew it would. Belief is everything. Our style is universal. We can be watched by creative families, creative adults, and the creative younglings. Our motto is to listen, to learn, and share. So we don't do drama, you know what we're talking about. We don't do negativity, and we don't do naughty words in this show. We try and keep the focus, all that positive energy, on the creator and the indie comic. Inspiring quote: comics are an international language. Oh yes, a post we heard about that earlier on X. An international language, because they can cross boundaries, illusory boundaries. We say, if the sword of light has anything to say about it, mere puddle and pebbles, we say, just a matter of mere procedure, and steadfast, stoic, and the other word comes to mind. It'll come to us in a moment. It usually comes from the great ether. Haste, but less speed. So comics are international language that can cross boundaries and generations. Comics are a bridge between all cultures. Samu Tezuka. Here we go. Bear Marchant. Well, hello there. Evening. Bear, we shall, yes, in the chat, a truth to learn from. We agree. Oh, yes. Feeling all right, Azrael, tonight? As always, this is our happy face as well, you know. So, yes, evening, sirs. Well, put evening in the chat. Azrael, yes. Are you going to let this guy speak, Azrael? Oh, yes. He's going to be doing a lot of speaking, and we're going to sit on our hands and gaffer tape our mouth. Evening.
I've just been liking how philosophical it got.
Oh, yes. We like to do a bit of that. Azuma, legend, sir. We miss him. Oh, well, what do I have here? Speaking of getting into it, can't wait. Looking forward to this. Guest introduction. Ashley's Argonauts. Pros. We always do a bit of generally a bit of positive comment because most indie creators are shy, retiring. You know, they don't push themselves in terms of self-praise, and that's for other people to say, you know, when we create, yeah? So Ashley's Argonauts at Ash Writing 97, writer, creator of the Unbreakable Argonauts. We think that's a great name. Welcome to the show, Ashley's Argonauts.
Thanks, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here.
And I tell you what, we've looked at your artwork again and again on Kickstarter. Thought we want to back that book. And as night follows day, it will happen before your campaign is out. We're looking at a digital option so we don't get absolutely dinged by international shipping rates, which we think is probably front-loaded for the big guys who've got the game nicely sewn up for themselves. After all, if you're a big billionaire corporation, you don't want the little guys having a piece of the cake or even a crumb of that cake, do you? Anyway, let's move swiftly on because we don't talk about geopolitical things and corporations. Corporations, as somebody once said in a Scottish accent, it is what it is. So let's move on. The big 5 questions. We're going in. A good thing about our stream is you can be drawing, doing the housework like Crenshaw does. And, you know, you can be sitting on your exercise bike and just listening to us ramble away. Azrael, can you do concise? Most of our 50,000 posts on X were written in haiku style. Once that penny dropped, we were well on our way. But once we got the blue tick, we kind of got a bit naughty. Right then, who is Ashley's Argonauts? Tell us about your storytelling influences, comic journey, movies, music. If you were your business plan for the Unbreakable Argonauts was a rock band, which one would it be? Or maybe even a country, folk, or pop. So take it away. Who is Ashley's Argonauts? Go, Ashley. Give it to us.
Yeah, my name's Ashley Land. So I got into comics when I was in my late teens. I'm a bit of a late bloomer. You know, like pretty much everyone, the first stuff I got into was like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. As I kind of branched out and got to understand comics a little bit more, I found myself really gravitating towards a lot of the older characters. So the Justice Society of America, Lee Falk's Phantom, The Shadow, you know, Doc Savage and that kind of thing. When I think this is a story that a lot of people have, which is when COVID hit, I was very bored. And, you know, everyone had a lot of spare time, and
free time,
if you were
the Great Darkness Wars, we call
and
them.
If you were like a creative person, then you took that time to start writing things, sketching things, that kind of thing. And I decided my initial plan was to come up with some comics and to see if I could pitch them to small indie publishers. But obviously pencils were down across the industry, so it didn't work out that way. And as I explored comics a little bit more, I found out that it wasn't quite as expensive as I thought to make a comic book yourself.
Is that because of digital things like digital print on demand and stuff like that?
I would say it's just how big the indie network is, how many people are out there looking for work, and you know, you kind of put silly numbers in your head when you're not making a comic as to how expensive it will be, and that can get really daunting. And you know, you're like, oh, you have to be a really big publisher to be able to afford to make comics, and then you find out that's not really true. And so yeah, I met Daniel Max through Reddit. He's the interior artist of the comic, and you know, we started talking comics. We started talking about what kinds of things he would like to draw and I would like to write, and we found we were on the same page for a lot of things. And I put all these characters together. A lot of them were originally meant to be in their own adventures, but as I put the characters together, I found that they actually really work well in their own universe together and on a team. You know, there's a lot of like complementary powers and personalities and that kind of thing. And I'd still like to put some of them in their own solo adventures, but I just really got invested in this idea of a team of heroes that were inspired by the old school pulps, not the kind of 60s sci-fi superheroes.
Yeah.
And
so almost going back to the pure kind of classic stoic hero type that perhaps were the primordial archetypes for national periodicals and Timely, as it were, that came after them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was just such a more diverse range of genres back then as well. You could pick up like a crime comic, a western comic, a sci-fi comic, a war comic, and so the team that I created, everyone's kind of their own. Every character on the team is their own genre, and so you've got you've got like a femme fatale kind of character on the team. You've got a Batman Phantom kind of character on the team. You've got the soldier, so you can go off and have there's a ghost here on there. He can go off and have supernatural horror adventures and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's I find that that's the best way to put together a team where everyone represents their own type of comic book.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been so much fun to write.
Ashley, you're a rock band, a pop band, a something band. Maybe you like a bit of jazz. We have to say that Azrael himself is known to like a bit of jazz, maybe a bit of Spanish flamenco, maybe even, we don't know, a bit of Doris Day. No, seriously. And Guiding Star.
I would be...
Go on.
I would be inspired to go with David Bowie just because of how versatile he was and how much he would change things up.
You've got something in common with Peter Sametti of Alterna Comics, because when we pressed him on it, he was like, I wasn't sure. We pressed him. He went for Bowie. If we were to go for Bowie, then we'd probably go for the kind of, when he was doing the glam rock thing, Ziggy Stardust. Yeah. We'd probably lean more towards that than his later stuff. So you'd be David Bowie then.
Yeah.
There you go. But speaking of flamboyant, yes. Oh, I see. We've got a wise guy in the chat, Azrael. Don't worry. This won't take long. No, we're just kidding. As well, concise. No, why use 3 words when you can use 3? Well, what we've got in our response is us sharpening katana. That's 3 words, isn't it? So, well, you did walk into that door, Master Bear. So, yes, why be small when you can be flamboyant? That's an interesting looking word. That's got to be a typo. Next, well, here we go. I think we're going to try that again, aren't we, Mr. Bear Marchand? Darling in Freddy voice. Well, yes, he was a very flamboyant character, wasn't he? And much missed he was. He wasn't a bad lad, and he brought joy to a few people. And certainly with long hair in the early days, we're more into that. And lush tracks like Let Us Cling Together, Teo Toriarty. That's when Queen was inspired by the first trip to Japan, believe it or not. And it's they're actually a kaleidoscope of different colours are the Queen brand, I guess. Just much like Bowie was. He was quite colourful, wasn't he, over the years? He kept changing, modulating his look, So, yes, of course. Oh, what we got here? Are we making Bianca Yamakoshi having a little laugh again? Making me crack, having a laugh. Well, I tell you what, we live to serve and breathe for charm and wit, it being mutually shared in the chat, for the chat is part of what we do here. And when they speak, speaking of which, a thought comes to mind. Bianca Gothic Noir Yamakoshi, the Dark Blade. Yes, the Dark Blade has today posted from our favorite legendary comic book, The Watchmen, her interpretation of the Rorschach scene with a psychiatrist. Have to say, we posted it. It's over 100 views, probably going more to 130 views now. And it's got the red trauma of Rorschach, remembering himself as a child. Bianca does this lovely thing where she contrasts in the composition red and blue pre-inked pencils, yeah? We think it's a compositional tool, but also in this case is an emotional tool, because Rorschach as an adult being talked to through the Rorschach block test with a psychiatrist, he's remembering what love meant to him growing up, as in he wasn't a child that was loved, he didn't get hugged. So that's the red pencil. And then him reflecting on that through the eyes of a distant trance and remembering those scenes in a cool, distant blue. Yeah, almost like a midnight blue or Prussian blue, possibly teal. And it's still in our head from when we posted it. I have to say, we'll be featuring that on our Art Thursday thread tomorrow, Bianca. In the art portfolio thread, we've got a few other people, including Brett, who was the last person we had on show. Check his work out. We've done a promo for him. We do free promos for people, which put in a lot of the work and host it on our site. Again, it's just another tool, Ashley, to push the indie comic creator and the comic. So yes, we like having a laugh with Bianca Yamaguchi in the chat, but check out her Watchmen illustration. It's she's certainly becoming a prodigious talent. She was before. Been watching her career for at least 2.5 years, and we'd say, we see when you follow somebody, Ashley, for 2.5 years, you see the evolving style, you see them improve.
Yeah.
I suppose from your point of view, it looks like paint dry, and you're thinking, will I ever get better? But when other people see and go from there to there to there, you go, wow, they're really, you can see the journey, can't you? So yes, check out her Watchmen post on 5 Pillars of Storytelling on X. Right then, so then, moving swiftly on. What does Ash's Argonauts create? Elevator pitch. Azrael has cut time and space into to divide the Atlantic Sea as the mere puddle it is, and tread over mere pebble of continent to see you at your convention table. Okay, what are you going to tell him when he turns up at your convention table? Presumably you're stood there, your iPhone in your pocket, and you're ready to go, and you're smiling at me, and I'll think, he looks like the kind of guy to buy that comic from. How are you going to persuade me, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to ask you if you enjoy classic heroes like the All-Star Squadron, really, really old school pulps. And just explain this, this is a world that's made for you. It's made with you in mind. It's a very action-driven universe. It's not, the kind of noir, story, dialogue-heavy comics can be good, but it's really, we're exploring the best types of heroes that there are, and just throwing them off on just really creative and absurd adventures.
Timeless, pulp, romantic stoicism, primordial Superman and Batman. Before the air was such a thing. We like the sound of that. In fact, we're going to back the digital version right now, because you had us at hello. Maybe you had us at hello. We think perhaps you had us at hello. We love our audience. We really do. They're part of the team, creative leaders. We like creative leaders. Oh, yes.
I really appreciate the support.
Yeah, no problem, sir. We thought you just eluded our grasp, Jack Kirby style. Take our hand. Come on, if you dare. Come on, take our hand. Azrael, behave yourself. And that's all it is. In the indie comics community, it's like the hand of friendship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will follow you back. Other people, they need just a little bit more coaching, and I don't use the word coercive. It sounds like we're manipulative, but not. It's like our guiding star for X, what do you call it, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, is grace, a trinity of words: grace, gentleness, and generosity. And we try to be positive by way of gentle word. And we look slightly above our iMac setup and look towards the sky and yonder horizon. May that guiding light guide our way, always. Right, moving on. Hey, folks, check this out. We're not going to talk about it because we'll probably do a Sid James. So it's probably better. It's just the artwork looks good. It's in that classical All-Star Squadron kind of way. But, the work has a kind of quintessential class of the time, when everything wasn't trying to be too angry and too liney and too just 2. Tell us about this cover, please. It's best if you say it.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, a lot of modern comics can be pretty grim, and the thing that I'm probably most what's the word? The biggest priority I put on this is that it should be fun. Like above all else, it should just be a fun, creative, imaginative time. And the series is set in the 1950s, and one of the things that I love about that is the kind of it's just such a hopeful decade. You know, the World War II is just finished, and people are they're looking to the future and they're trying to move on.
Yeah.
And so you get a lot of this, like the famous Norman Rockwell paintings and that kind of thing.
Keep going. You're singing our song. Keep going. We're like this. Don't hold back, Ashley.
One of my favorite things of the era is like the old, the old pin-up girl pictures.
That went in airplanes as the pilots went to war in the sky. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so I got in touch with an artist named S. Forrester, who's known. He makes the Dogs and Sailors comic, and asked him to make this piece, which was a slight redesign of the character, which is Dynamo. She's I guess the best way to explain who Dynamo is she's sort of I don't want to say a female James Bond, but she was like a really well-trained spy during the Second World War, and all the heroes on the team, in some way or another, they kind of have their origins in the Second World War. So some of them were created by like scientific experiments during the war. Some of them are just soldiers who came home. They wanted to keep being heroes and put on vigilante costumes and that kind of thing. And so in her case, she's kind of the team's she's very good at hand-to-hand combat and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And as I say, everyone kind of represents their own type of comic, and I just thought she just putting her up in like a pin-up girl style poster cover kind of thing would just really fit. And
almost like a trade dress, narrative trade dress, setting out your stall for your marketing of your book. That this is your vibe, this is your philosophy, visual philosophy of fonder times, positivity, and classic stoicism. And stoicism can be a lady thing as well. It's about that that heart and bravery, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, it's a very, I want a better word than hopeful. It's just a very, it speaks to the innocence, I guess, of the series,
Indeed, it does. Bianchi Yamakoshi is saying the art of the series is amazing. Thank you, Bianca. We love positivity, whether on X or YouTube. We try to be very gentle. We want positivity, because when you do that, when you hold up the cosmic mirror, when you put out good vibes, you'll get those good vibes back to you. That's just what we believe, especially after the last 5 years. So being positive is more important than ever. And that's a beautiful compliment, Bianca. And yes, the lady has dark hair, we notice. How about that? Let's move swiftly on to cool compliment, Bianca. We like your positivity. Positivity. Yes. Positivity. We like that. Makes us smile. We try not to smile too much because we don't want to break the glass on our computer. Right then, that cover is convincing. And we're thinking All-Star Squadron, but even better. We're thinking Soul, because it's been done by, instead of a corporation, it's been done by a real human being instead of a machine. Hey, we're not doing politics, sex, religion this show, and we're not doing anti-corporation stuff. It's just, we think we're slightly biased towards indie comics. That's all we're saying. Instead of giving £5 to absolute whatever, we're going to go back and say we'd rather have absolute Argonauts as our £5 to spend. Just saying. And now, tell us about this interior art, which looks quite dashing.
Yeah. So when I was getting started with the comic, as I said, the first thing I did was put out feelers asking people to send me their portfolios so I could find someone to work with. I saw Daniel's art before we started messaging, and as soon as I saw one of his pages, I was like, I want to work with that guy. But I didn't really expect to. I was like, he's got to be busy. He's got to be working off on 3 projects in the pipeline, that kind of thing. Luckily, it's one of the first portfolios I get is his, and I recognize that it's his, and I just, everyone else was kind of sidelined, and I just went straight to Daniel, and I was like, yeah, I want to make comics with you. And
he said,
he was like, absolutely, yeah. And I think
absolute. Before there was an absolute Batman, there was an absolute yes to you, Ashley. We should call you Absolute Ashley. We're just going.
One of the, so at the time I was kind of torn between 3 different projects that I wanted to do. One of them was it was like a cyberpunk Judge Dredd kind of comic. One of them was a more 1960s style superhero team, and then there was this one. I think I commissioned a couple of pages per story from Daniel just because I want to see them.
Yeah.
And the way that I knew I wanted to work with him is his style fit each genre. And seeing this, it was just such a nice fit for that kind of golden age pulps. And I was just, it was hard to imagine someone else getting there, because a lot of people, you'll kind of say to them, if you have when you're moving through portfolios, you'll say to people, if you have any work that looks like the golden age of superheroes, send that along so I can have a look at that. And a lot of people will just send along their like manga work, and it's very hard to know if they can adapt their style. Whereas with Daniel, I could tell right from the outset that he could. And I absolutely love how well he brought the characters to life. And
do you want to give him a shout out to the camera? Go, let's put you on big and go on, give us some love.
Yep. So if you can, you should be able to find Daniel Max on Instagram if you want to see more of his art. But yeah, it's such a well-drawn comic. And I should also actually give a shout out to Russell Vincent Yu, who's the colorist. He's absolutely fantastic as well.
Nice one. We like that. A bit of love for the creative teams,
Yep.
What would say? We'd say something like, I don't know, dream team. We'd also say something like brilliant partnership. We'd also say, well, to be revealed later, perhaps. And, we're going to do a few absolutes. Here we go. We're going in, folks, to the absolutes. We've got, well, we're being modest if we said absolute Azrael. Of course, we're not going to say that. We are actually quite modest and shy, despite running or trying to run a show. But we'll say absolute Ashley, absolute Argonauts. And here we go. Bianca's getting into the wit and charm herself with some absolute yeses. Absolute yes will be used from now onwards. We absolutely agree. And we would say we're going to absolutely back the absolute Argonauts. You see that, national periodicals? We can do that too. It's called marketing. And if air we have to breathe, when the mammals took over from the dinosaurs, the wild frontier in the comics, we're going right in, folks. Like the Lord of the Rings and all the green spirits take on the orcs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're outnumbered. No, we're not outnumbered. We've got some green spirits. I'm going to take the orcs down like this. So here we go. Yes, absolute will be used. Yes, from now on. Absolute good. Well, Bianca Yamakoshi, we like having you in the chat. You're rather in danger of having a similar sense of humor to ourselves. My gosh, we'll have to sit down and steady ourselves. There couldn't be another with our sense of humor. That wouldn't be possible at all. But here we go. We need to have a little look at some more of this artwork. Absolutely, yes. Tell us about this page, please, Ashley. You're doing great so far. We like having you on. Maybe we'll have you on again for the next issue.
So one of the, there's like an old joke that there were a few things that sold comics consistently in the 1950s. One of them was the color purple. One of them was women crying. One of them was gorillas.
Really?
I have two. Yeah, I have. It was. So if you go back and you look at a lot of the 1950s comics, you'll find comics that have nothing to do with gorillas that have gorillas on the front cover.
Really? Let's get the old King Kong thing. I hadn't left the mind share.
Yeah, and I don't know what it was. Something about having a gorilla on the team just made sense to me. It just fits the era and it fits the genre. But as I was coming up with the character, I wanted him to have, because it's very hard to have a really good kind of opposite to a guerrilla hero. And so I was like, I'll just make another guerrilla. But they have this kind of Professor X Magneto relationship where they're very different philosophies.
Nemesis.
Yeah. And Aurelius is, he likes humanity and he likes being a hero, and then you have the villain, which is Gigantor, who's he was very mistreated as an ape, and so he's just full of hatred for human beings, and that comes out on this page where he just doesn't care. He
was mistreated. We'd like to see the guy who mistreated him, because I'll tell you what, we wouldn't go anywhere near a silverback that was that big, because we'd probably just put the stick down on the ground and run for our lives. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
But the artwork here, look at the backgrounds here.
Yep.
The setting. I mean, your guy is absolutely crushing those backgrounds. You notice, and did you research the gorillas and purple color thing then?
No, I pretty much left the color scheme down to Russell, and then if I see something that I don't like, I'll tell him. But it almost never happens. He's really good. He's a really good colorist.
Did you find out about the purple during the 50s being a thing and the gorilla thing?
Oh, yeah, that's I think it was Alan. So there was an editor named Julius Schwartz, and he was one of the first people to comment on that, and that's because if you go through 50s comics, it's hard to ignore that there are just gorillas everywhere, and there's just no reason for it. And then in I think it was 1956 or 57, they make Gorilla Grodd, but as a Flash villain. They turn, I think it's in the 1960s or the 70s, they turn Ultra Humanite into a gorilla, and it's just so many gorillas. And I just found that interesting, and I really enjoy researching the history of comics. What was the inspiration? Because there are so many comics where you'll pick up a comic from, say, the 70s, and you just recognize something in it about it from the 40s or the 50s. A really good example is like you have Swamp Thing and you have Man Thing, and then you go back and you find out that there was a hero from like the 1940s called the Heap, and it's a very similar idea. And in the 1970s, they reprinted the Heap the same year that they made Man Thing and Swamp Thing, and I always wondered if Len Wein and Stan Lee and Roy Thomas and that heard that this was being done, they wanted their own version. But yeah, I mean, I find the history behind character creation, I find that pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. We find the likes of Jack Kirby, the Source, the King, who strode as Mega Olympian across the 40s with Captain America, the 50s with the romance genre, the 1960s with the Jack Kirby universe, and yes, there's some kind of purple gorilla style vibes in the Hulk's Golem style state. Yes, so it's almost like an overhang. It's interesting that the name for Daredevil was actually taken from a wartime hero called Daredevil. So there is, and even Spider-Man has a primordial development. It's not just Stan and Ditko, as we say, Ditko and Stan. There is the sense of, before that, there was the Silver Spider and the primordial story of Spider-Man, which was probably taken from Simon and Kirby, or Kirby and Simon, as we like to say, to Stan. And Jack Kirby drew the first 5 or 6 pages, yeah? And basically, where are those 6 pages? Nobody ever talks about that, but we do, because we can't help ourselves. And yeah, Jack Kirby has probably got a bulky style, and being the editor stands for, you know what, Ditko's got a more lithe style for a nervous, arcane, almost seeming awkward elegance that maybe a uncertain teenage character needs from a narrative writer point of view, yeah? But interesting that Jack Kirby still did that cover all the same. Just saying, on all the other covers, So we tend to think of Jack Kirby as the ideas man, but he's not just his biggest flaw was not being the credit man. Anyway, moving swiftly on, tell us more about this next one, which we think is lovely. More gorillas, more purple, and just look at the depth you're getting by going into that first panel. It's almost like a Hulk-like character. You've got such heft. We don't want to get in a tangle with that guy. He's probably going to, well, we can't say on a what he'll do with our head on a universal family-friendly chat show, but it's probably going to be intense. So it's like one of those bouncers on a nightclub. You don't go up to him and say, "Hey, you, move out the way so we can get inside," because he'd probably fold us like a deck chair. So tell us about this interior page, please.
Yeah, sure. I mean, well, one of the things that stands out for me is definitely the color work. I don't know why, I find the sky on this page just really captivating. I just love it. But yeah, this page is, so you got the two gorilla, the hero and the villain locked in this fight for, the villain's out just causing chaos through the city, and the hero comes down to try and stop him. And in the final panel, you kind of see this difference between them, where Gigantor, the villain, he very much, he's like Grodd. He embraces the fact that he's a gorilla. Aurelius is more.
He's not Ben Grimm. He's not ashamed of who he is. He's almost like embracing the fact that he's the thing, or the monster, or he's a gorilla, and that's who he is.
So Gigantor is he's the villain. He's always been alienated from humanity because I'm kind of this is a story that's going to be revealed later on. They used to be together, so they were before becoming sentient or before becoming intelligent and being able to speak, they were close. As they got older, their paths were very different. So Aurelius was taken in by like a very kindly carnival show that treated him well, and they heard that he could speak and he was kind of like an attraction. They took care of him and they would read to him and they kind of nurtured him. Gigantor was taken in by the military, and the military was more, they just wanted to weaponize him. And so, Gigantor, he's only ever been used for his whole life as a weapon. And so that's all he knows.
So Aurelius made him like that.
Yeah. And then Aurelius he's seen the nurturing side of humanity, and he's not quite as cynical as Gigantor. And so he's more, I don't want to say conflicted, but he's a lot more amenable to helping human beings, and he's not like ashamed of being a gorilla or anything silly like that. But he just has like a better harmony between his intelligent human-ish side and his gorilla side, whereas Aurelius he just hates humanity, and so that's the difference between them.
Would you say Aurelius is a nod to Marcus Aurelius and the philosophy of Stoics?
Yeah.
Good
exactly.
Man. You've definitely got an open invite for when you need to promote this next time, DM us, and we're doing it.
Because Aurelius I wouldn't say he's the strategist of the team, but he's the deep thinker, and he's the academic of the team. And so as he was read to and as he looked into things himself, he just admired Marcus Aurelius and decided to give himself the the moniker, if you will, of Aurelius.
Have you looked at it sounds like you have, the teachings of Marcus Aurelius and other Stoics, like Seneca and all those kind of people? And that is something you're interested in terms of, because Dan, who ended up being our first of Godfall universe, we like Dan a lot, and he's really very protective, but he sees virtue in Western civilization and the classicism, which we seem to be getting away from. I'm not sure where we're going, perhaps to Captain Kirk going crazy and taking over the Enterprise. But look at our statues and the Renaissance period, the teaching of Marcus Aurelius, and some of the fine buildings and temples that have been built in the kind of relatively modern history. And that, are you proud of Western civilization? Think we could draw upon it? And obviously be progressive in our thinking because we want to create new, but can we still embrace the old and influence something new? How do you feel about all that?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things that, when you want to have this kind of pulpy innocent, childlike series, one of the things you have to do is you have to kind of like downplay the bad side of history, but I think you should also be aware of it. And I've always been a really big I'm really passionate about history. I have a degree in it.
Oh, have you? Well done.
Yeah, and and so I don't want anyone to think that I'm ignorant of the bad things in history, but I'm also incredibly proud of the good things that that we've done. And I mean, I think you should be able to enjoy the good things without being too defined by the bad things, if you so long as you can recognize when they're bad. And I mean, it's society is a work in progress. That's the way I see it.
Do you know what? That's one of the most beautiful answers we've had on this show. You are straight up an eloquent fellow, well spoken, and we like the cut of your jib, sir.
I appreciate it.
No, it's all right. I mean, that's the whole point of the show. I mean, we get guests on the show who've got that we'd say just below the sea level kind of profile, where you want to just lift them up so they can breathe a bit more, and so more people can see their head bobbing above the kind of water, kind of like skyline, horizon line. And it's just about a few gentle words, try and be positive, shine a glitter ball, shine a bit of sunshine on them, so that people go, oh, right. Because if we get up to, if you follow our channel and give us a sub after the show, or follow, whatever you call them these days on YouTube, that follow will come back to you. And also, like a pebble in the pond, you get ripples,
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get up to 250 followers, then 500, then 750, then 1,000, people are going to watch you, and they're going to come think, he does that cool comic where gorillas enjoy being gorillas, and who doesn't want to read about that? You know what I mean? And you've got this classic elegance of innocence that has been lost. And I'll tell you what, right now, if your comic was a pancake, we'd go face first into it, and almost, yes, would it satisfy our hunger? But almost, comics like what you're doing are life-giving oxygen to maybe indie comic book fans who maybe feel like they've been forgotten along the way, disenfranchised, some might say. So what you're doing is passionate, it's courageous, and it's got conviction about it, And as we all know, sincerity, absolutely, that's a key word. But those, as you know, as a historian, and you're well done that degree, those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's go to the next. Oh, wait a minute. We've gone through all those pages already. Do you know when we actually put them into slide, we're thinking we want more? Azrael, you got to back the book, man. You got to buy it.
I'm always so nervous because on my Substack, I used to commission like short comic strips, like the old newspapers.
Go on.
But I would never charge for them. I would never charge anything for them. I would just put them up for free. And I had the same problem with my comic where as I was commissioning a page, I was just so excited I wanted to show it. And there was a point where I think I was running the risk of just posting the entire comic up for free, because every time a page would come in, I'd be like, everyone on Twitter, you got to see this amazing page. And then I had to get some self-control and not just give it. Yeah.
Is that now? Look, we like to talk dirty words on the show. Though Azrael, it's universal and family friendly. Business. We like to talk a bit of business, because after all, you can do the art, the writing, but you get this naughty word called business. Hello there. And they have to kind of talk to one another to make money. And some people are great at the art, but not so good at the marketing and talking business. If you've got a history degree and you can go and get a marketing degree as well, you never know, you might be able to do it one day.
I'm actually taking a marketing course at the moment. Yeah.
Well, we're going to be quiet. Tell us about it. We're interested. Right, we're listening.
Oh, I don't have that much to say. I'm only a week in. So
only week in. All right.
At the moment, it's just like identifying market vulnerabilities and that kind of thing.
Right then. What we would say is you're doing the best thing ever for you,
Mhm.
your comic, and the future of Unbreakable Argonauts. We'd like to see that comic in double figures one day.
Yeah.
That what we say is, and it's just our preference at the Five Pillars of Storytelling. You stick by us readers, we'll stick by you. Show us the love, show us the passion, and we'll show you this. It's called a wallet, and inside it, we've got pennies and pounds and even a debit card or two. So what we're saying is, oh, by the way, Nottingham Forest folks, the world famous city ground, the city of Nottingham. Come on, you Reds. Had a good season this season, finished, was it 7th in the league? Should have been 5th, really. Gone into a Champions League. But we did get the Europe Conference League, which isn't so bad. And yes, 2 European Cups and a renaissance under the current owner, Mr. Marinakis. Less football talk, Azrael. You know you're not sporty. Behave yourself.
I will just, if I could just give myself a quick shout out. I actually have
a quick plug. Let's do it. We love plugs in this show.
So I do have a free Substack page, and if you go over there and you just look at some of the older posts, there are free, short kind of comic strips that I found enjoyable, or set up something else that I'm going to be doing later on. And yeah, you can it's just like a brief insight into the characters and a look at projects that I'm hoping to do in the future.
Can you name them? Or
yeah.
Let's hear them.
So one of them is actually, I think you can see the...
All right, let's put you on the big screen, sir. Let's do it. We're going in.
There we go. So this is one of the stories that I'd like to do at some point. It's called Lucky Duck Incorporated. It's I don't know if you're like a fan of the old what's the old kind of hard-boiled detective things like the Maltese Falcon and that sort of thing.
Favorite movie of all time. Dear me, your working is over today, Ashley. All the stoics, all the classics, film noir. We still are beating heart. Keep going.
And so what this is it's taking the hard-boiled detective and turning it into a Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing. So it's going to be
like Batman animated, that kind of classical, kind of noir, kind of timeless thing.
Kind of. It's about so you've got Elmore T. Quackley, which I never take myself too seriously. Elmore T. Quackley is he's a duck detective, kind of like Darkwing Duck, kind of like Howard the Duck, that sort of thing. And he's partnered up with a human who's more of the straight man. He's the serious guy, and together I haven't really got much going on with them at the moment, but their adventures are going to be sort of in this world that's larger than life, but they're more grounded characters, and it's kind of hard to explain. They just they get themselves caught up in these superhero supervillain dynamics, but they're shady enough that they can kind of work between both sides, and they're not it's more of a mystery kind of thing.
Tell you what, so there is a sense of more than one string to your bow, sir.
Mm-hmm.
We've made the comment a while back when, see, a little while, Bianca, good luck with getting those red and blue pencils, yes? She says, absolutely stunning on the artwork, Ashley. So you must be doing something right. Absolutely, Lee. And so, yes. See you later, Bianca Yamakoshi. We feel like saying something in our baritone voice. Why would we do that? Anyway, yes, we spoke to John Dexter. He's got 3 aces in his pack, yeah? We have got Alpha Dogs, the Dime Store Detective, and he's got a sci-fi series which we can't remember the name of. And let's say somebody doesn't like his dog book, although half the people on the planet like dogs, another half like cats. So we said to him, you're making millions if you do it right. Yeah? Because most of the people that want to buy your book, Ashley, we humbly suggest, are outside the traditional market of comics and indie comics. But we think because indie comics are independent and authentic, most of the trend now isn't big flashy videos not on YouTube. It's authenticity. So we don't do edits. If we stuff up, we stuff up. So what people see with us is what they get. We're trying to be as authentic as possible. And that when we interact with the chat, yeah, we want to do this together. Rising tide lifts all boats, yeah. So if they, for example, they don't like your book, Unbreakable Argonauts or Absolute Argonauts, they'd be crazy not to, but they've got a choice of a detective book that doesn't take itself too seriously, yeah, and so forth. So imagine you've got a dice and you've got 6 books. One day you might get you're gonna have 6 books. Let's just say, yeah, for pretend sakes, yeah, make believe. You roll a dice. Now in Monopoly, you've got to get a 6 to start, haven't you? No,
I don't play Monopoly.
Well, take it from us, great. But
I'll take it.
If you've got anybody short-tempered in your family, chances are the board's going to hit the ceiling at some point, yeah? Because when somebody's got all the hotels and all the big premium real estate, that basically that will get frustrating. There's always somebody that ends up penniless.
We've had
go on
in the when we were younger, we had this exact experience with Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, here we go. Tell us, we want to know.
To this day, I don't know how to play Dungeons and Dragons because every time our mum wanted to teach us to play, she'd set up the board, and every time one of my sisters would get their character would get like killed or paralyzed or something within the first 10 minutes, they'd be like, "I'm not playing this," and so we never managed to get further than about 10 minutes into a game of D&D.
A bit tough on the beginning player, by the sounds of it. A bit old school poison or die situation. Yeah, as a GM, Azrael will be tempted to be more forgiving. Don't worry, we'd make it fun for you, sir. We could do a bit of that. I have done so in the past, actually. Moving swiftly on. So yes, you've got a dice. You've got 6 books. Now in Monopoly, you need a 6 to start. But what if you roll a 3? Somebody's not buying your book, are they? If you only do 1 book and it's a 6 book, they've got no choice of a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. You're given a variety. So you've got a 1 in 2 chance of scoring a 1, 3, or a 5, yeah? Odd numbers versus even numbers, yeah? So you can look out with an even number, or you can be unlucky with an odd number, for example. If you have 6 books out, every time you roll a dice, you're going to make a sale because they're going to like something because you've covered all the main genres for them, yeah? Do you see where we're heading?
Yeah.
That's what we hypothesize anyway. Maybe Azrael, maybe you can do 6 books and prove your wise talk sometime in the future. Oh, yeah? Well, we'll see about that, shall we, huh?
Well, one of the I have actually thought about what you're saying. One of the things that I'm doing is every book I'm going to do is going to have a backup story, and the backup story is going to be different characters. So you're not just getting the same team through and through. And so if you have like these recurring backup stories in the back, maybe you don't necessarily like the Unbreakable Argonauts, but maybe you really are intrigued by the story in the back, and you go, I want to finish this up. But also the backup stories are going to be, aside from issue 1, the backup stories are going to be exclusive to print.
Yeah.
And so, the idea there is to give people like a specific hook to keep buying the print books, because I love physical comics. So, and then once we've got like a full story with the backups, we'll publish that as its own thing.
No, I like your thinking. On the sniffing thing, I'm feeling indie comic books. Peter Cimetti and myself spent about 5 minutes getting into the sniff thing. And it was absolutely hilarious. But, just that visceral reaction of the senses, isn't it? Just the look of a real comic is different to a piece of glass digital comic, yeah? With the best one in the world. Get it in your hands. It is off the scale, tactile. You're giving a paper comic a hug. It's in your hands, yeah? Have you got any in your hands? Can you show us of Unbreakable? Have you got Unbreakable around? Can we have a little look? Just while we're here. Oh, yes. He's gone and done it now. Oh, avert our gaze. Look. Is that the cover? Is that the cover that's on campaign? Go on, we're looking. Tell us.
Yeah, so this was the first cover I commissioned. It's from Yannick Paquetez. So this is Yannick Paquette. I say the most famous thing he's done was he was the interior artist for Wonder Woman Earth 1 with Grant Morrison.
Very good.
And yeah, I was incredibly lucky that I managed to work with Yannick, because I think he's one of my favorite cover artists. He did a lot of like Justice League Dark covers that I really enjoyed, and I reached out to him, and I was very, very lucky that he was available to draw the cover. We have, sorry,
good catch.
Yeah, so we actually have. There were 4 main covers on the first campaign. Then we've got the new campaign exclusive cover. So there's technically 5.
To give another reason for people to back the books, that variants are some that we think, forget about the corporations, we think indie comics have made variant covers a speciality, giving plenty of artists a chance to show their stuff.
I agree, but I think if you're doing a lot of variants, each variant should be a very unique type of cover. And so we've got like the kind of pinup. So we've got a heroes cover, we've got a villains cover, and then we've got a it's a very, I don't have any because this cover I only printed as many as people ordered, so I don't have any laying around. But it was like a prestige black and white, no trade dress, that kind of a single character thing. And then the other one, the pinup girl one, which I think is a lot of people really seem to enjoy.
Yeah, I have to say I do like the pinup one, but I'm quite partial to that one you just showed. If I was next to your convention table, I would be saying yes, please. You'd have probably asked me. You don't have to ask me. Just yes, please. The answer would just be yes.
Yeah, I've had so many people who got in touch with me and they said because I saw that cover, that was what got me into the campaign. And yeah, I'll just show it up again.
We've got a good big screen, folks. Is that available in the current campaign?
Yeah.
So you can get that one. Digital, yeah.
Well, so this will be the cover on the digital copy as well as the. Obviously, if you buy this cover, you'll get this one as well.
Oh yes.
And then there's a complimentary villains cover by Rich Perrotta, who also drew the backup story for issue number 1 as well. He also drew one of the covers for issue number 2. There's just so many great people involved in the book.
Like the way you're so inclusive, getting people in and getting people involved. Yep. And it's instead of people being behind you, they're side by side with you in the battle to monetize. And we're saying earlier we got on the business thing. Well done on doing not only the history, you've got that. That's brilliant. So you're not going to be doomed to repeat history, but also, you can harness marketing using a marketing degree, and that will give you an extra edge. So you'll be doing commercial art. So you'll be learning how to monetize, how to market, how to do accounts, how to look at what effect advertising will have, sales funds, blah, 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 yada, yada, yes? Look at Eric July, as we were trying to say actually about him. How did he get millions? He brought his audience from music. Music and indie comics should be blood brothers. Get a local band, get them to do a vinyl, that's your merch. What music would you have? Well, you've got this idea of what band you'd like, David Bowie. Get a David Bowie style tribute band to do some non-copyrightable flavor of that music, and that's the let's see, you've done 4 issues of Unbreakable Argonauts, and you've gone right. Song 1, 2, 3, and 4. You release as merch and make what they used to call them EPs, with just a few tracks on, as opposed to a single or an album. You release an EP with several songs on it.
Yeah.
Amen. Well, what we got here, we've got the Iron Seas. Hail all ye scallywags. Welcome, Iron Seas. It is good to have you here, brother. Absolutely. Welcome. Oh, yes. Tell you what, come at the most opportune time. We're about to show Ashley's trailer for the Unbreakable Absolute Argonauts. I think we better have a little look at this. Now we've got this is where we need a 2-monitor setup. We've got to press play on here and hit the, wait a minute. We've got to take off the presentation temporarily.
Just a warning, I think it can be a little bit loud.
Oh, right. Well, yes.
It's only like a short kind of showcase.
Short and loud. just the way we like it. We're going to do it, Ashley. We're going to do it. Hopefully, hey, somebody wants to hear about your indie comic. They're going to hear about it right now. Hopefully, we don't have the thought police knocking our door any moment now for actually having an opinion about something. Azrael, let it go, man. You're going to get yourself into trouble. Right, so moving swiftly on. We need to put this on the add to stage. Now we've done it. Now we need to press play. Here we go. We want more. We're going to play that again. Sorry, folks. Just too good. Let's do it again. Tell you what, who's the guy that uses is it Jan Himmerman, the Superman Man of Steel music? Yeah, I'll tell you what, you got him on toast there with that music. I'll tell you what, you know, one area where we think indie comics are taking the battle to the big boys, and they're not so big boys anymore, as we say. Hey, you want to lose customers? We're fine. In the indie comics community, we'll have you. Come and join us. You'll get original ideas. Absolutely. We think trailers are starting to really go to the next level, and they were a bit enthusiastic probably 2 years ago. But hey, you know what? Some people say life and dancing is 95% turning up. But now the standard of, you look at Michael Bancroft's work on Lucent and stuff like that. The bar for indie comics is on par now with mainstream comics, if not higher in some areas. And so shout out to you, Michael Bancroft. We backed your paper copy of the Lucent, and we've done a unboxing of it. We just need to learn how to get the cool sticker off the back seal without tearing it. We've got to think about not tearing cool looking stickers, but we'll do it. Moving swiftly on. So yeah, cool trailer. Great sounds, and it really gets the point across. We remember seeing that a little while back when it just eluded our grasp. Now, will I like Ashley's Unbreakable Argonauts? Who is your indie comic for? Greetings from sunny California, 1952.
Yeah, do you want me to just go?
Yeah, go right in. We want to know who's it for.
So, just like a short backstory. I grew up on adventure movies like Indiana Jones, Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, and there was just something so perfectly escapist about those films. And it's for people who missed that type of entertainment, just getting into a new universe, going on all kinds of different adventures, but not having too much asked of you, just being along for the ride and enjoying characters in different settings, just and having some love for just very strange, weird, and wonderful stories that aren't repetitive, always keep things changing, and are just innocent and inspirational and hopeful.
Yes, that's it, isn't it? Innocence, hopeful, a new dawn. Giving people hope rather than an endless train of cynicism. Yeah, I mean, in Pulp Noir, there was a hard-boiled quality to it. You've got the granite Bogart, and then you've got the marble lady, damsel in distress, yeah?
Yeah.
But there was a sense of high contrast black and white in terms of the style, yes, but also the morality of it. And yes, there was a bit of grey in black and white movies, and there was also in the storylines as well. But men were men, women were women, good was good, and bad was bad. And Nemesis was the Nemesis, and the good guy and the good guy, though he could be a little bit rough around the edges, like Bogart. You knew that he was probably going to take a lick or two, but he'd come back and show people how the smackdown was going to go down. So yeah, it's that sense of timeless classism. Yeah, I mean, we look at that, we think we want it. It speaks to us. Artists, even before Jack Kirby, the ones he learnt from, Hal Foster, Prince Valiant, Alex Raymond, yeah, for Flash Gordon, yeah, and Milton Caniff, Tearing the Parrots. Those were the titans, yeah, that probably in many ways, particularly Milton Caniff on the clothes work and the eyebrows for Jack Kirby. I mean, he said the way to learn was monkey see, monkey do. You pinch little bits, then you become this magpie of an artist. You've kind of forged your own identity by learning from the masters. Yeah, who did the masters learn from? They apprenticed the masters. Yeah, and Jack Kirby was forged as Mega Olympian from seeing you can get through better influences to become the artist he was. And during his era, there was Jack Kirby, and then a little bit later, there was Alex Toth. Twin pillars. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So your comic is for people who appreciate timeless stoicism, classic, quintessential primordial archetypes that probably laid the foundation for all the comic books that came afterwards. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's that kind of thing. With you being a lover of history, you've kind of immersed yourself in that, would you say?
To some extent, yeah. I mean, it's historical events. I would say it's a lightly alternate history universe, but it's more kind of taking the crucial historical events of the 20th century and just adding that pulpy spin to it. So, you know, how would World War II have gone down if it happened in Doc Savage's universe? How would the space race have gone down if it happened in, you know, the Phantoms universe, that kind of thing? And just exploring those elements, and yeah, I mean, just taking everything great about the old school comics and just infusing that into history and blending the two. And there's one of the things I'm actually playing around with is the themes of Greek mythology, because obviously it's called the Unbreakable Argonauts.
Of course.
And so
we missed a beat there.
Yeah.
We were going to ask you that question if we'd have thought about it, but we originally thought, is there a Greek link when we saw the first campaign? Go on, tell us, please.
Yeah, and so like, just for example, not without giving too much away, but it's taking the challenges of Greek mythology and turning those into pulpy ideas as well. So without, as I said, without giving away a spoiler, or spoiler alert, I should say, in issue 2, they go up against a giant mechanical cyclops, and it's that kind of, you know, taking things that people recognize and they understand what you're doing, but bringing it into the 20th century as its own thing. And it's I think it's just so much fun to write and explore and to see come out in the art.
So we're going back to the foundation stones of Western civilization,
in
terms of Greek mythology, yes, and giving it a spin for a relatively modern era in terms of history, but not going too close to where we are these days and everything that goes with it, but just going back a little bit to maybe a fondly remembered time, but those virtues that perhaps maybe we're missing these days, and that is maybe there is a yearning for that. And you, if you've had a successful crowdfunder, perhaps there is a taste for that almost like, the Bronze era is almost harking back to the pulp era in many ways, because for many people the Bronze era is where time stopped for comic books. Yeah, maybe up to the Jim Shooter kind of 80s era, and then after that things get a bit murky maybe.
Yeah, the Bronze Age was actually my introduction to comics. One of the first
Go on, tell
series.
us more about this. We're interested.
Yeah. One of the first series that I read was the Len Wein, Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing, and it's. I mean, if you, for those who haven't read it, it's every issue is basically a different, like a Golden Age Universal Monsters movie turned into a comic, and I just found that incredibly fun. Then at the same time, you've got like the All Star Squadron, they're getting back into their own title, and Justice League is doing some really crazy things with Ultra Humanite, and they go into different universes and that kind of thing. And yeah, I think for me, the way that I kind of conceptualize the Unbreakable Argonauts is it's a blend of Golden and Bronze Age comics. I mean, there are things I love about the Silver Age, but it's not my favorite, and there are things I love about more modern comics, but they're not my favorite. And I think
we can perhaps touch on this. Why is that? Is it because you just like that primordial archetypes, the classicism, before heroes became too, let's say, navel gazing, but full of emotional hang-ups, whereas Doc Savage is going to go and do it without moaning about it, moaning about his cornflakes going soggy, or having his companion turn the cold water tap off or the hot water tap off while the thing's having a shower. People like that, but we have to accept that some people might not like it. Is it because you like those stoic virtues more than that kind of emotional snowball that's kind of carried on to today, to the point where it's so emotional that you're thinking, what's the energy in this?
Yeah, I mean, just as a kind of fun comparison, there's two really different visions of Batman. There's the like the Brave and the Bold animated series Batman, and then there's Batman the animated series, where I could go for the hard-boiled detective Batman if writers didn't keep making him so miserable. But there's only so many comics you can read where he's just so brooding and so depressing sometimes, and I just wanted to I just wanted to get rid of that baggage, and just here's a Batman type character he's got over himself, he's not
almost like Bogart is Batman. It's you like the kind of a Batman, or the golden era as we call it. That is, you could imagine Humphrey Bogart in Maltese Falcon wearing the Batman outfit to a degree, from a certain point of view. And the Maltese Falcon does have a broodingness to it, but it's not joyless. There's almost like a kind of sense of humor throughout it, like when Peter Lorre, or the guy that's tailing him, basically gets his coat put around his arms and he's like that in his own trench coat. There is a sharp, almost hard-boiled sense of humor to it. It's not joyless.
Yeah, and I mean, Sam Spade is a perfectly, he's not socially dysfunctional. He's a very competent, he gets the job done, and that's, I mean, the same thing with Dirty Harry. Like, the characters can be a bit misanthropic, but they're not. You still like them, and you still want to see more of them, and you identify with them a lot. Whereas if you make a character a bit too anchored by their emotions, it just loses its appeal the more you do it.
Well, what do you do when you do that? It's almost like you make almost, if you're as a stoic, you can't go to that. Perhaps you can't go to the nth degree of emotion, otherwise you can't get the job done. And you're paralyzed by it, by brooding, and then this brooding. There's no brooding by Batman in the earlier. We've got the first omnibus of Wonder Woman, and it's fantastic. And
Batman used to crack a smile all the time.
Crack a smile all the time, and he'd pop a gun. Oh, this thing, he doesn't have a gun, and Captain, they both had pistols. It's like pop somebody. There's one of him swinging by a window where he actually just puts his foot on somebody's neck, and that's cracked. They're over. But go on, I
was going to say, I know in one of the in one of the very early Batman stories, he had like a mounted machine gun on the Batmobile.
Oh, come on, Ashley, give it to us.
And I think it was one of the first Joker stories where he's like he's on the Batmobile. Obviously back then the Batmobile was just a car, and he's like I don't want to take a human life, and he's like and it's just so different from today, where the characters were a lot more, they lived in a real world and the consequences were a little bit different. Obviously that started to change when they they started bringing Joker back and that kind of thing, but
well, what it is history. Well, it's not when it's not telling the truth, is always a celebration of now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Downstream from culture, and we think we're probably going to get an omnibus of the first few issues of Batman, based upon what you just said. We just want to see Batman with a Gatling gun. Why? Because we want to have some fun, and that is allowed.
I was going to say I used to have the I've sold it since, but I used to have the Golden Age. It wasn't like the hardback omnibus, but the paperback. It's so expensive now. It's so expensive.
Yeah, you're looking what now for those omnibuses. If you want the first 20, 30 issues of something, they pay up to £50 or something. Well, that is in $70, something like that, and that's a lot of money. It's even get the reprints of these early comic books.
Yep.
They are expensive, aren't they? So we should say here, why do you create indie comics? We just we typoed in that. So why do you create indie comics, and when did your journey with indie comics begin, Ashley?
I think, like a lot of writers, I just have the impulse to write. If for some reason I couldn't do comics, I would write novels. I'm actually writing a novella at the moment as well. It's nice to put a story down in a more, because obviously when you come up with a story, it's fleeting thoughts that aren't really tied down. It's just, wouldn't it be cool if this happened, and wouldn't it be cool if this happened? When you finally put it down,
which is the way Alfred Hitchcock used to do his movies. He just imagine a series of events, then write it down, and so it'd be just so that the cinematographer or the storyboard artist could say, right, this is happening, and then you could shoot for cinematography. The words, Hitchcock said, were just atmosphere.
Yeah, and
so what you're saying.
Yeah, but seeing everything come together, and more importantly, being able to share it with people and see if they can kind of identify with the same things that you do. My view of comics is that if you're going to make a comic, you should make the type of comic that you wish was on the shelves so you could buy it. I think that's like my golden rule of comic making is, if I wouldn't buy this, I'm not going to write it. And so, or if I wouldn't buy it for someone else, I wouldn't write it, and that kind of thing. And so, that's my golden rule, is I'm writing the comics that I want to read more often, and it makes it a lot more fun to do.
By the crucible of my talent, I will forge the newsstand in you. At least his book will be on that newsstand. Don't know about what everybody else is doing. They can consult their own Delphian oracle. But Ashley is going to write the book he wants to. And that's why people are going to back his book along with me, the Azrael. Right then. So then, what advice would you give aspiring creators, Ashley? On this show, we listen, learn, and share. With the we don't call them followers, we call them creative leaders on this show, yeah? And what we're thinking, hang on a minute, they're grown-ups making comics. The days of us being ashamed to read a comic on a bus for fear of being a geek or a nerd or one of those strange people or a weird person actually reminds us that time we went to the dentist last week. We knew she'd been ill, so we went in the stride tried to cheer up her. I said, how's things going? And then we'll not mention the name. And she says, and we were slightly archaic, because obviously Azrael is first language archaic, second language English. And we just said to her, so such for the sun shining. What a great day it is. Has there ever been a better illumination on yonder horizon? And then she just said, "You're weird, but we can see you coming from a good place." I said, "Yes, but apart from weird, you forgot strange and all those other words." So we like to have fun on the show, and what we're saying is that indie comics and indie creators can have their own language. You can do your own business plan. You can have your own color palette. You can refer to the classics. Yeah, if everybody else has forgotten the classic pulps and the pulp tradition, yeah. We know that Razor Fist is very big on the shadow, if you've heard of Razor Fist, and he's done a great one on the pulp YouTube video on the classics, and he always presents himself in black and white, doesn't he? And there is that kind of yearning for that stoic, timeless, classic example of decisive males who don't want to be, my wife doesn't understand me, and I've been brooding, and the brooding never stops. We don't need all that. Just get on with the job, son. You're Batman. Grow a sense of real, absolute conviction, and do to the Joker what needs to be done with a Gatling gun. Because let's face it, it's been a long time coming. So, what advice would you give aspiring creators? You've got children, adolescents, and creative families now that can watch Steve Rude of Nexus on his YouTube channel, fine painting, doing Nexus, and you can perch on the shoulders of the giants. What advice would you give aspiring creators, Ashley?
So I think there's creative advice and then there's business advice. The first piece of creative advice would be what I said before, which is write comics that you would pick up and that you would pay money for. If I think most writers will come up with a bunch of ideas before they ever execute on it. So they'll have, here's one story I want to write, here's another story, here's another story. If you read through a story and you kind of doubt that this is worth the investment of making a comic, maybe see if you can turn that into a book instead, or if you can turn it into or even something else that's kind of low investment, like produce your own radio show kind of thing. Just because I think that marketing and getting a following is more than, if you have a comic, it's more than just that comic. It's proving that there's more to it, that people get something else out of following you.
Value.
Yeah. And I would say there's no such thing as spending too much time building a following, and there's and investing in marketing to some degree. One of the mistakes that I made the very first time was I didn't really begin marketing. I didn't really begin doing the YouTube circuit and talking about my comic until the day of launch, which was the worst. I think was the worst mistake I could have made, and I've never made it since.
Live and learn.
Yeah, there are so many platforms that you can build your presence on. So one of the ones that I found most useful is Substack, because you can just send people a newsletter every week. You can tell them, this is what I'm doing. Here are my links to everything. And it's the nice thing about Substack, as opposed to say Twitter, is everyone who sees your Substack articles is there for you. They've subscribed to you specifically. It's not like getting lost in someone's Twitter feed. It's if someone's reading your stuff on Substack, they know who you are. They know about your comic, and
because you've got a specific place.
Yeah. And that's, for all intents and purposes, it's your website and it's free to make. And so definitely there are so many tools that I think writers should be aware of them. They should use every single one of them. Instagram, Facebook, if you can. Even like ArtStation and that kind of thing. There's just no such thing as having like too big of a following or spending too much time building your following. And then with creative teams, I would say get to know your creative teams a little bit before you do anything, just to make sure that you're on the same page and that they can do what you want them to do, and that they're actually interested in your project, and they're not just, obviously a lot of artists are just, they're cashing a paycheck and they're doing work. But if you can find someone who's actually personally invested in your work, then that's so much that's
Get
just such
to
a waste of
know
time.
them through the social media and see if
Yeah.
they're reliable characters or not, rather than approaching somebody random. Just keep an eye on them for a little while and see how the community, if they're employed by somebody else in the community, what kind of reputation do they have? Do they finish their jobs, or do they take the money and not finish the job? Using an extreme example, yeah.
Yeah.
And you're saying go wide with your social media, so that way your followers aggregate, and that, for example, Substack, which we don't have, so you schooled us there. That's something we've learned from you, and we say that Ashley, you're the resident expert on the show, and we call everybody who comes on our show an expert, right? A creative leader, and you're going to have something that is unique to you that nobody else has said. And we've listened. I thought that's a nice bit of a golden nugget, bit of advice. And I thought, oh, we've learned something there and there. But we're well into double figures with what you've said tonight. So, and people think, oh, well, we know it all. Well, we don't know it all. We're a bit like Socrates. We know nothing. So that advice was pure gold, one of the best answers we've had for what advice you give aspiring creators. So aggregate your following across a range. So, for example, if Instagram barks you to death for making 7 positive posts and deplatforms you, you've got another one to go to. Have your newsletter, have a Substack as backup, yes. And we're going to, currently our phone number's been held to ransom for us to have our Instagram account back. Pity, because we did post a bit of artwork. Actually, we did the Battle of the Chins, and it's kind of like big monster style jutting chin character with almost a Judge Dredd style character opposite. Guys are always comparing the size of their chins, and so we did a nice little bit of shall I say sharp rendering, and it got liked and commented on it by Gary Spencer Millage of Strangehaven fame. It's a bit of a cross between Prisoner and Twin Peaks. If you've never read it, we recommend it at GarySpencerMillage.com. Probably millage.co.uk, is it? Or millage.com. Recommended. As a writer, you might like Strangehaven. Very impressive. It's now on Patreon, and likely, folks, it's got another 50 pages to do, and his 30 year journey on Strangehaven will be finally over. How about that for commitment? So, next one. What superhero would you be, Ashley?
I really resonate with Hawkman.
Why?
Because Hawkman's like half superhero, half Indiana Jones, and I don't know if you read Robert Venditti's Hawkman series. Oh, it's
Tell us.
It's hugely inspirational to me. It's so I don't know how familiar you are with Hawkman, but he's.
Have you got a copy lying around? Can you show it?
No, I don't.
Oh, never mind. Go tell us that anyway.
But it's so Robert Venditti, who's of all the modern writers, I think Robert Venditti is probably one of the most influential on me, because he really loves the old Golden Age and Silver Age comics as well, and that comes out in his writing. And his Hawkman series ran for about 30 issues, and it's Hawkman. Because Hawkman's power is that when he dies, he reincarnates as a new version of himself.
Phoenix.
And this series is him reconnecting with all of his past lives, and he travels across time and space, and he meets all of his past selves. But the character of Hawkman, he's an archaeologist.
Interesting.
And so when he's not a superhero, he's kind of going on these like Indiana Jones style adventures, and something about those two worlds coming together, I think it makes for a really fantastic character.
Got to interject. That makes sense with your history background. Have you got a slight related bent towards archaeology then? Because you've mentioned Indiana Jones and a few other things. Is that a bit of a secret passion of yours then, archaeology? Ancient Egypt and that idea of exploration and hidden history, which is what archaeology is, isn't it? Go on.
I mean, one of my superheroes is an archaeologist, and that's how he becomes who he is. He's a military archaeologist during the Second World War, and he goes on a trip to the Temple of Abu Simbel, which is the famous Egyptian. I don't know if you've seen like anything on the Nile. It's the Egyptian temple that has all the like the lines of pharaohs outside of it.
Yep.
And so he goes in there and he finds an artifact that gives him his powers, and he's the only. I would say he's the only traditional superhero on the team, whereas everyone else is a more grounded character who uses like gadgets and fighting technique and that kind of thing. But yeah, history and archaeology I just find them really intriguing, and it's always nice to find inspiration in older figures and history. It's just I love history.
Almost like the twin pillars of Ashley: history, hidden history called archaeology. Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Bonus questions. Don't worry, you're not going to need this. The lawyer from The Simpsons or that big window next to you. Just us. Only a few more now. Right then, what are your plans, Ashley's Argonauts, going forwards? And we love that Kickstarter image. We want that cover so much. Look at it. It is beautiful. That's what got us interested in the original campaign. It just eluded us. But to get the second chance, we've been watching for a while and we thought, is he going to do another Kickstarter or not? When we were thinking, come on. And so what are your plans for Ashley's Argonauts going forwards, and sir?
So, I mean, I'd love to keep the series going as long as I can. So the main Unbreakable Argonaut story, I'd like that to be an ongoing, more or less. But then I do want to do side projects that are in the same universe. So Lucky Duck, as I've mentioned before, and just solo stories for the characters. Some of them will be short stories, 8-10 pages, that kind of thing. Some of them will be the length of a floppy or hopefully a graphic novel. But yeah, I mean, I can't see myself running out of ideas for the universe anytime soon. So for as long as I can do it, even if it's not comics, maybe it'll be future novels or something like that. I'll still keep writing about the characters.
Is it within the comics that you have creative control, and it's got a short gate in terms of people you can have on it? I mean, some creative teams are down to 3. John Long of Heavyweight, a swirling conspiracy featuring boxers with golden blood and nose crunching action. He was on our show, and his team he was the creator and writer. He had one artist who also did the trailer artwork, and his wife, very handy to have one of those shoulder to shoulder with you in this journey through life. Some wives will just leave you to it in your man shed and think, oh, he's doing that silly little thing. But if you've got a wife that supports you, she does his editing and his accounts. Dream team, yeah? Do you have anybody in your support network that also believes in this with you? Or is it just the community in general is supportive of your efforts?
Yeah, I mean, my family's supportive of it. They don't. Good. They're not hands on like that. But yeah, they read the stuff. For me, it's like regarding the creative team, it's more. I'd say I'm pretty much friends with the creative team at this point.
So that relationship's developed. Are they going to stick with your book for what? No. Until you get to the first 4 issues, they make it into a trade paperback, for example. So you can actually, because all the work will be paid for, you just have to make the trade paperback, and that will actually galvanize you for the next arc, do a side project in between. Is that the kind of plan?
I mean, with Daniel and Russell, I'll keep working on them on the Unbreakable Argonauts for as long as they're available, anyway. I don't, but at the same time, I do like mixing up. So maybe for the backup stories, I'll reach out to other artists so that because I think when you do backup stories or anthologies, I think people at least want a difference of art style between the stories. They want it to still match the genre, but they want a more distinct difference between the two.
When we caught some issues of Wonder a little while back, one of the things we liked about Team Blue, we call them, because we don't like to free advertise corporations. Maybe they can free advertise us. Is that Woodham would have a backup story featuring the Huntress and Power Girl by Joe Staton, and we loved that. In fact, sorry, Wonder Woman, we were more compelled by the Huntress and Power Girl as a team up, as a backup story, than we were actually by Wonder Woman at some point. The story with Paul Levitz and Joe Staton we couldn't wait till the next issue, and so the book flipped for us. Although Gene Colan's Wonder Woman was very elegant.
Yeah, Action Comics can be the same way. The main Superman story, where I think right So I don't currently buy Action Comics. I had to trim back my pull list a little bit so I could afford to make more comics.
Of course.
But I remember that was the case for Action Comics at one point, where it was because I think they had like 3 different stories in each issue, and so depending on what you like, there was like Dan Jurgens was on a backup at one point where he was doing he was kind of going back to the death of Superman for the second or the third backup story, and so if you were picking up part of you was like I'm picking up for that bit.
Tell you what, maybe Team Blue will buy your book.
I'd hope so.
Well, we could buy a Team Blue book with an absolute flavour, but we're going to go for Absolute Argonauts. Just saying. Right then, favourite pizza. You knew this question was coming.
I usually make so I usually order custom.
Custom jobby. There we go. We're going in with a bit of lock and load pizza, folks.
So my preferred pizza is first of all cheesy stuffed crust, barbecue sauce base, sausage, meatballs, and peppers.
Just looking at our hand right now, we're thinking that just check that's not the drawing hand, because we're probably going to start on this. It looks like the right one, but folks, we're okay. This is our left one, honestly. It's just the way the camera reflects. For us, right now, it would be anything type. Well, we can't actually publicly say what we'd like on a pizza, and we shall move swiftly on before we get thrown off YouTube. Right then, where can they find out more info about the Unbreakable Argonauts? Ashley.
So Substack would probably be the easiest, most streamlined place to find out about the Unbreakable Argonauts, because you can just flick through the posts and everything's got all the information that you need. Also over at Twitter, I'm AshWriting97. Then obviously Kickstarter. You can also pretty much, if you just type in Unbreakable Argonauts, you'll find us on Instagram. You'll find us on, I think, I don't remember.
Facebook,
Pinterest. You'll find us on
Pinterest.
You'll find us on Twitter as well. If you just type Unbreakable Argonauts into pretty much anything, then
are you into those marketing keywords? That's something you've looked at, advertising, or get into like those search keywords? Is that something you've looked into? Because if it comes up, then obviously maybe you've looked into keyword searching, so you kind of get people aware of your book. Tell you what, Ashley, you are, what we would say is you are very cosmopolitan on your social media. Rather than having a one tribe narrow mindset, you're very like this. You're very open-minded. We like that kind of doors on infinity opening kind of wide frontier mentality, because at the end of the day, it's you and a big place called the Wide Frontier Indie Comics. It's like that Wide Frontier America situation where everybody's running for a plot of land called their own, put a stake in the ground on a bit of land in the indie comics community. And we're okay with a bit of joshing, a bit of friction as people go shoulder to shoulder, as long as it's kind of rising one another up, a bit of friendly competition. But for example, we could call your book out on the next show. We might talk about Star Million, is a great indie comic promoter of Orion. There's Brother Dio of the Tomb of Reckoning. We call Star Million and Brother Dio the yin and yang of indie comics. They've got a real chance of breaking our indie comic top 5. Only 2 books are in it. Gary Spencer Milledge's Strangehaven, in at number 1, hasn't been moved for a long time. In at number 2, want to check him out, Blacks and Comics by African futurism Canadian artist Kelvin Marosi. And it's basically Star Wars meets Game of Thrones. And blacksandcomics.com, folks. I tell you what, we've got all 6 issues. We want 7, folks. That is great contact information. Now, how do we sum up Ashley? Well, of course, first of all, we're going to say thank you very much for being our special guest, Ashley. We wish you well and Godspeed. Ashley's Argonauts. We'll tell people to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow him on his various places, such as X, Substack, which we're going to get on and try and bring the 5 pillars story into Substack. You taught us something there, Ashley. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Good man. And the Kickstart as well is live, and probably within the next 24 hours, Azrael's going to back it. Just gotta. Absolute Argonauts, folks. I think we can borrow that word. And yeah, what do we say? Ashley's a civilized gentleman, utterly well spoken. We like his sense of stoic roots with timeless pulp classicism. You know, it goes back all the way to ancient Greece, right up to the primordial classics of Doc Savage and characters like that, the Shadow and other such things. You know, Tarzan, that kind of pre-Samson, even, yeah. There before, I mean, where did Superman come from? You know, and Batman is the son of the Shadow, etc., etc. So yes, before there was the quote unquote big two, well, compared to the sales numbers back then, they're not really the big two anymore. Actually, you know, that's just a modern myth. And indie comics are getting closer all the time in sales to the corporations, as they very lately learn their lessons between the manga tsunami and the absolute riot, the absolute explosion of indie comic creators and indie comic books over the last 2 years. Thousands. But we thought on X there'll be a few. Thousands, yeah? And Ashley and his Argonauts, Unbreakable Argonauts, is a kind of book we'd like to see make it into double figures with timeless virtue and stoic heroes who get the job done, even if it involves using a Gatling gun. So we'd like to thank you, sir, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Classic, but progressive. And we're glad to have you. And open invite to come again with your next issue, yeah? Just DM us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
No problem. Right, here comes the outro trailer, folks. Let's do it.